The San Diego sun burned my skin as I adjusted my crisp, white U.S. Navy uniform. Lieutenant Lauren Hayes, 28, a naval security officer specializing in emergency procedures and crisis response. That was me, at least the official version on my document. My father, Captain James Hayes, a 30-year Navy veteran, was accompanying me to the naval base where I had been stationed for 4 years since graduating from Annapolis. He hated civilian airports. Too much chaos, too little efficiency, he would always grumble. But when he learned I would be responsible for overseeing an emergency response exercise at San Diego International Airport, he insisted on being there. "I still can't believe you chose security over naval operations," he said as we walked through the terminal. "All that training in Annapolis only to end up doing ... paperwork." I rolled my eyes. It was the same old conversation ever since I decided to specialize in security instead of following in his footsteps into combat. Operations. "Dad, we've talked about this. Naval safety isn't just paperwork. I know. You run drills and analyze procedures." "Very exciting," he said sarcastically. "In my day, real officers were at sea, facing real conditions." I took a deep breath. I loved my father, but he had a very traditional view of what it meant to serve in the Navy. "Today, you'll see what my job is all about," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "Today's exercise is a coordinated test between the naval base and the civilian airport. If it works, it will be implemented at bases across the country." My father raised his eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "A security simulation? We'll see then. I hope there's at least some action involved instead of just pressing buttons on a computer." I bit my lip to keep from responding. I'd been working on this integrated security protocol for the past 8 months. It was a groundbreaking project that would allow military and civilian installations to coordinate efforts during security crises, the kind of thing that could save lives. We arrived at the restricted area of the airport, where a small team was already waiting for me. Civilians and military personnel stood side by side, all with tense expressions. The exercise was scheduled to begin in half an hour, and the tension was palpable. Lieutenant Hayes, the airport security manager, greeted me. "All set for the drill." "Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. This is my father, Captain Hust." My father shook his hand firmly. "Interesting operation you have here. My daughter assures me it's not just a bunch of paperwork." Reynolds smiled politely, but I could see the discomfort in his eyes. "Actually, Captain, your daughter has revolutionized our response protocol. Before her, we would have at least a 7-minute delay in communicating with the naval base during an emergency. Now, we're integrated in real time." Before my father could respond, my radio pinged. "Lieutenant Hayes, we are 10 minutes from the start of the exercise. All observers are in position." "Copid," I replied, and then turned to my father. "Showtime. You can observe from the control room with Mr. Reynolds and miss out on the fun?" "No way. I want to see how it works on the ground," he replied, crossing his arms. I sighed. "Okay, but you need to stay with one of the observers and not interfere. This exercise is important." He nodded, and one of my non-commissioned officers escorted him to an observation position. As I watched them walk away, I felt that familiar pressure in my chest. Why was it so difficult for him to see the value in what I was doing? I pushed those thoughts away. It was time to focus. I checked my equipment one last time and positioned myself in the temporary operations center we'd set up at the airport. From there, I would coordinate all aspects of the exercise. "All hands in position. Commencing drill at T-5 minutes," I announced over the radio. My eyes scanned the monitors showing different areas of the airport. Everything looked normal, exactly as it should have been before we began the exercise. The plan was to simulate a security breach at Gate 7, near where military aircraft occasionally docked when civilians were being transported to the base. "T-1 minute, I said, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline that always came before important exercises. It was then that I noticed something strange on the monitor showing Gate 8, not Gate 7, where we planned the drill. A man in a cap and dark jacket appeared to be fiddling with the electronic lock on the door leading to the runway. "Control Center, do you see what's happening at Gate 8? I asked quickly. "Negative, Lieutenant. Our focus is on Gate 7 for the exercise." I frowned. It didn't look like part of the simulacrum. The man glanced around quickly and continued fiddling with something on the door. I need confirmation if we have any technicians working at Gate 8 right now, I requested. Urgently. As I waited for a response, I saw the man open the door and make a quick gesture. Two other individuals with large backpacks appeared and quickly passed through the door. Lieutenant Hayes, we do not have any authorized personnel at Gate 8 at this time, came the reply I had been dreading. My heart raced. Abort drill. I repeat, abort drill. We have a possible real security breach at Gate 8. Implement Procedure Delta immediately. There was no time to think about what my father would say. I grabbed my radio and started running toward Gate 8 as alarms began blaring throughout the terminal. Ironically, we were about to simulate exactly this kind of scenario, only this time, it wasn't a drill. All units converge on Gate 8. Possible armed intruders. Initiate lockdown immediately. I ordered over the radio. I turned a corner and almost collided with my father, who was running in the same direction as me. "Lauren, what's going on?" he asked, panting. "Actual security breach." 3 individuals entered through the door at Gate 8. "We need to seal the area before they reach the main terminal," I explained quickly. To my surprise, he didn't question it. His years of training kicked in. "What's the procedure?" "We're implementing Delta Protocol. I need to get to Gate 8 and coordinate the perimeter." He nodded. "I'll go with you." There was no time to argue. We continued running toward the gate while I gave orders over the radio. The terminal went into full lockdown, doors closing automatically, passengers being escorted to secure areas. As we approached Gate 8, we spotted 2 of my security officers already in position. "Guns drawn? Situation?" I asked quickly. 3 suspects. 2 headed for the runway. 1 is trying to enter the main terminal. "Damn," I muttered. If they managed to reach the aircraft or the terminal full of civilians, the situation could become catastrophic. "Father, stay here," I ordered, but he was already analyzing the layout of the hallway. "Lauren, you need to divide your forces. They're trying to create a distraction." I frowned, but he continued. "I know this kind of tactic. One will draw attention while the other 2 do what they really came to do." I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Airport security, focus on the suspect trying to enter the terminal. Naval team, with me. We'll intercept them both on the tarmac." With a swift movement, we passed through the door the invaders had used. My father followed closely behind, and I could see that, despite his age, he still maintained impeccable physical fitness. The runway stretched out before us, the California sun glinting off the concrete. In the distance, I could see 2 men running toward a small, parked cargo plane. "There," I pointed, and we started running. My radio crackled. "Lieutenant Hay, the suspect in the terminal has been detained." Repeat, "A suspect detained." Copied. "We're chasing the other 2 on the runway. We need reinforcement." In Sector 5, we were gaining ground when one of the men turned and threw something in our direction. A small, cylindrical object landed a few feet away. "Smoke grenade?" my father shouted, pulling me behind a baggage vehicle. The area was quickly enveloped in thick smoke. I lost visual contact with the suspects. "We need to go around," he said, trying to visualize the runway layout in his mind. "If they get to that cargo plane, they're not going to the plane," my father interrupted. "Look, where we were going, not where they were going." I followed their gaze and noticed that, in the direction they were running, there was a small side door that led to a restricted hangar, where a military helicopter was being prepared to transport sensitive equipment to our base. "The helicopter," I whispered. "How did you know?" "Instinct," he replied simply. "Now, do you know another way to that hangar?" I nodded. "By the fuel tank." "Let's go." We ran low, skirting the cloud of smoke. My radio continued to broadcast frantic updates on the situation at the terminal, but I kept my focus on the immediate mission, stopping those men from reaching the helicopter. Using my knowledge of the airport's layout, I guided us through an alternate route. When we reached the other side of the hangar, I could see the 2 men forcing their way in. One of them was carrying what appeared to be some kind of electronic device. "We need a distraction," I muttered. My father looked around and pointed to a fire alarm panel. "Would that do?" "Perfect." He quickly moved to the panel and activated the alarm. Immediately, the shrill noise echoed through the hangar. The 2 men stopped and looked around, momentarily distracted. This was our chance. "United States Navy, stand still," I shouted, advancing with my gun drawn. The men split up, one running behind the helicopter, the other pulling out a gun and firing in our direction. My dad and I dove behind a dumpster. "Still think it's just paperwork?" I asked breathlessly. He gave me a look that mixed concern with a certain reluctant pride. "This is no time for jokes, Lieutenant." The shooting continued for a few more seconds until we heard the sound of several officers arriving at the hangar. "We're surrounded. Drop your weapons and come out with your hands up," announced an amplified voice. There was a tense moment of silence, then the metallic sound of a gun being dropped to the ground. "Come out! Don't shoot!" shouted one of the men. Slowly, two pairs of hands emerged from behind the helicopter. With reinforcements keeping the suspects at bay, I could finally breathe. "Perimeter secure. All suspects detained," I announced over the radio. In the next few minutes, the area was flooded with security personnel. The suspects were handcuffed and led away, while experts began examining the device they were carrying. My father stood by my side as I gave instructions and coordinated the response team. When I finally had a moment to breathe, he placed a hand on my shoulder. "Good job, Lauren," he said in a tone I rarely heard. "Thanks, Dad. Do you still think I'm just doing paperwork?" He shrugged, but there was a small smile on his lips. Let's just say I might have underestimated the importance of safety a little. It was the closest thing to a compliment I was going to get from him. I accepted it with a smile. "You know," he continued, looking at the airport now returning to normal, "the way you implemented the lockdown procedure was impressive. There was no panic. Everyone knew exactly what to do. This is what we trained for." All that pile of paperwork defined exactly how each person should react in a situation like this. He nodded thoughtfully. "I suppose there's more than one way to serve." Hours later, when all the reports were filed and the suspects were taken in for questioning, we discovered they were part of a group planning to steal sensitive military technology transported in the helicopter. If it weren't for the quick response and lockdown system I implemented, they might have succeeded. That day changed many things. My integrated response protocol was immediately adopted as a standard, not only for Naval Base San Diego, but for military installations across the country. And perhaps most important, for me personally, it changed my father's perspective on the work I did. During dinner that night, as we discussed the day's events, he said something I will never forget. "You know, Lauren, when you chose security over operations, I thought you were wasting your potential. Today, I realized I was wrong. You saved lives today, not with guns or ships, but with preparation, training, and leadership. I'm proud of you, Lieutenant." I smiled, feeling an emotion I rarely allowed to express on duty. "That means a lot, Dad, more than you know." He raised his glass in a to naval security. Apparently, much more than just paperwork. In the days following that incident at the San Diego airport, my life changed completely. What began as a simple security exercise turned into one of the biggest cases of military-industrial espionage in recent years. The 3 men we arrested were part of a much larger organization with international connections. The device they carried wasn't just to steal the helicopter, but also to copy data from a new top-secret navigation system that would be installed on that specific aircraft. I woke early the next morning after only 4 hours of sleep. My father had returned to his hotel, promising to stay in town for a few more days at first, as he usually flew back to the East Coast as soon as possible. It was a small gesture, but a meaningful one. Upon arriving at the base, I was immediately summoned to a meeting with Admiral Peterson and several high-ranking officers, including some I had never met before. "Lieutenant Hayes," the Admiral greeted me formally as I entered the conference room. "Your work yesterday was exceptional. These people would like to speak with you about the incident." A man in a dark suit stood up. He wasn't wearing a military uniform, but his rigid posture betrayed him as someone with training. "Lieutenant Hayes, I'm Special Agent Marcus Donovan, Naval Intelligence, targeting various American military technologies. The device they were carrying contained advanced software specifically designed to hack and extract data from the new navigation system. We'd like you to lead a full security review of all facilities that could be similar targets," Agent Donovan said. "Your response protocol has proven effective in a real-world situation, and we believe your perspective will be valuable." I felt my heart race. It was a huge opportunity, the kind of career advancement that would normally take years to achieve. It would be an honor, sir, I replied, maintaining my professional composure, though inside I was ecstatic. Excellent. You will have increased temporary authority and a small team at your disposal. Work begins immediately. I left the meeting feeling the weight of new responsibility, but also a sense of validation I'd never experienced before. My phone vibrated. It was a text from my dad. Dinner tonight? I have some stories about naval security that you might find interesting. I smiled at the screen. It was the first time he'd shown genuine interest in my field of work. Over the next few days, I dove into the project. My newly formed team included cybersecurity experts, intelligence analysts, and physical security officers. We began mapping vulnerabilities in military installations across the West Coast. My father, surprisingly, became an unofficial consultant. His decades of naval experience offered valuable insights into how adversaries could exploit even the smallest flaws in our systems. The problem with security, he told me during one of our working dinners, is that you're always fighting your enemy's imagination. They only need to find one flaw, while you need to anticipate every possible one. It was strange to see how our relationship had transformed almost overnight. The respect I'd always sought from him was finally there, born out of the most unlikely circumstance. 2 weeks after the incident, while we were reviewing intelligence reports on the spy ring, I received an unexpected phone call. Lieutenant Hayes? This is Rear Admiral Morgan's office. He would like to meet with you in Washington next week. Rear Admiral Morgan was the head of naval security operations for the entire country. An invitation to Washington meant our work was attracting attention at the highest levels. Is there a problem, Lauren? My dad asked, noticing my expression as I hung up the phone. I've just been summoned to Washington to meet with Rear Admiral Morgan. He nodded slowly, a small smile forming. Looks like your paperwork is making quite an impression. On the flight to Washington, I reflected on how my life had changed in such a short time. Just 3 weeks ago, I was just another security officer struggling to prove myself, especially in the eyes of my father. Now, I was leading a high-level security review and on my way to a meeting with one of the Navy's most senior officers. Rear Admiral Morgan's office was located in an unmarked building near the Pentagon. When I arrived, I was immediately ushered into a conference room where Morgan himself was waiting for me, along with several other officers and, to my surprise, Agent Donovan. Lieutenant Hayes, the Rear Admiral, greeted me, shaking my hand. Your work over the past few weeks has been remarkable. Please be seated. The meeting began with a summary of my team's findings to date. We had identified patterns in the spy network's operating methods and mapped several potential vulnerabilities in naval facilities. What impresses me, the Rear Admiral said after my presentation, is how you connected dots that were right in front of us. Your integrated response protocol between military and civilian installations is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. Thank you, sir. Lieutenant Hayes. Agent Donovan interjected. Based on your analysis, we believe there is a possibility that these are not isolated incidents, but part of a much larger coordinated operation. He activated a screen on the wall, showing a map with several points marked along the west coast of the United States. In the last 18 months, there have been 7 seemingly unrelated security incidents. Individually, each was treated as a local problem. But when we look at the overall pattern, double, quotes, the dots on the map began to flash in sequence, creating a distinct north-south pattern. They're systematically mapping our defenses, I concluded, feeling a shiver run down my spine. Exactly, the Rear Admiral. And that's why we're calling you on a new mission. The next words completely changed the course of my career. Rear Admiral Morgan offered me the leadership of a special task force dedicated to identifying and neutralizing threats to naval security. It was a position normally reserved for much more senior officers with years more experience. Sir, I'm honored, but ... I hesitated. I'm sure there are more qualified officers for this position. Lieutenant, he replied firmly. You've demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative and adaptive thinking. Sometimes a fresh perspective is more valuable than years of experience following the same old protocols. As I left that room, My head was spinning with the possibilities and responsibilities I had just accepted. My phone vibrated again. My father. "How was the meeting?" he asked when I answered. "They offered me command of a special Naval Security Task Force," I replied, still trying to process the information. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "Dad? Are you still there?" "I am," he finally replied, his voice strangely choked. "I'm so proud of you, Lauren. More than you can imagine." Those words, so simple, yet so meaningful, stayed with me as I returned to the hotel to prepare for my move to Washington. My father, who had always seen security as a secondary role in the Navy, now recognized its value in mine. The next morning, while packing my suitcase, I received another call, this time from an unknown number. "Lieutenant Hayes?" "Yes. Who is speaking?" "My name is Claire Richardson. I work for the Secretary of Defense. He would like to talk to you about your work on integrated security protocols." I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to maintain my composure. "The Secretary of Defense?" "Yes, Lieutenant. Your work has caught the attention of people at the highest levels. The Secretary is particularly interested in your approach to integrating civilian and military security systems." When I hung up, I had to sit for a few minutes to process what was happening. From a routine security drill to a meeting with the Secretary of Defense in a matter of weeks, I called my father again. "You won't believe what just happened," I said as soon as he answered. After explaining the Secretary of Defense's invitation, there was again a moment of silence. "You know, Lauren," he said, "finally, when you're a kid, you used to build elaborate alarm systems for your dollhouse. Remember that?" I smiled at the memory. "Yes, with strings and bells. Your brother always made fun of you, saying you were being paranoid. But you always said you were prepared for anything. I think deep down, you always knew your path." It was true. Since I was little, I've always been fascinated by security systems, by thinking through emergency scenarios, by being prepared for the unexpected. It wasn't just a career choice, it was part of who I was. Thank you, Dad, for remembering that. And for finally seeing value in what I do. "I should have seen it sooner," he admitted. "Sometimes we need a scare to realize what's right in front of us." In the months that followed, my life became a whirlwind of activity. The task force I led grew rapidly as our work produced concrete results. We managed to identify and neutralize cells of the espionage network in several locations along the West Coast, with each successful operation strengthening our position. The integrated security protocol I had developed was implemented nationwide, creating a cohesive response network between military installations and critical civilian infrastructure. My name began to be recognized in national security circles, and I received awards that would normally take years or even decades to earn. But perhaps the most significant change was in my relationship with my father. The man who had once dismissed my work as just paperwork now bragged to his veteran friends about his daughter's accomplishment. He even requested a temporary transfer to Washington as a consultant, allowing us to work side by side on a few projects, an experience that strengthened our bond like never before. 6 months after the airport incident, I attended a ceremony at the Pentagon where I received the Defense Superior Service Medal for my contribution to national security. As the Secretary of Defense pinned the medal to my uniform, I saw my father in the front row, his eyes shining with unbridled pride. For her exceptional leadership, innovative vision, and exemplary dedication to the nation's security. It is with great honor that I present this medal to Lieutenant Lauren Hayes, the Secretary. After the ceremony, as we were receiving congratulations, my father came over and hugged me tightly. "When your mother passed away," he said quietly, "I promised her I would take care of you, that I would guide you on the right path. For years, I thought I knew what that path was. Now I realize you always knew better than I did." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Mom would be proud of us both," I replied. "Yes," he agreed, pulling back to look me in the eye. "Especially you, the officer who turned just paperwork into one of the most important security operations in recent Navy history." I smiled, remembering that day at the airport that had changed everything. "You know what's funny, Dad? Drill we were about to do before the actual security breach? It was almost exactly the same scenario. We were literally about to simulate a gate breach followed by a lockdown." He laughed. "Life has a peculiar sense of irony, doesn't it?" "Yes," I agree. "And I'm glad we were prepared thanks to all that paperwork. That night, as we ate dinner to celebrate, I reflected on the journey of the past few months, from a security officer fighting for recognition to a respected leader in national security, from a daughter trying to prove herself to a proud father, finally seeing her true capability. A year had passed since the airport incident. My task force had grown in size and scope, now overseeing integrated security and military installations across the country. My father had finally officially retired from the Navy, but he continued to work as a civilian consultant for our department. It was a typical Wednesday when I received a call for an urgent video conference. When I logged into the virtual room, I found Rear Admiral Morgan, Agent Donovan, and several other high-ranking officers I now knew well. Lieutenant Hayes, the Rear Admiral, his grave tone causing a knot in my stomach. "We have a critical situation emerging." An image appeared on the screen, a massive aircraft carrier sailing in open waters. This is the USS Redemption, our newest aircraft carrier. She is currently on exercises in the Pacific, about 300 miles off the coast of California. Another image appeared showing what appeared to be a computer system. 3 hours ago, the Redemption's communications officer detected an attempted hack into the ship's navigation system. Initially, we thought it was an isolated incident, but ... double quotes, more images appeared on the screen, showing other vessels and naval bases along the west coast. In the last 2 hours, we've detected similar attempts at 6 other facilities. The attack patterns are identical to those your team identified in the spy network. We've been monitoring. I felt my heart race. They're expanding their operations. Worse, Agent Donovan said, taking the floor. We believe these attacks are merely diversions. Our analysis indicates they are preparing for something much larger. The Rear Admiral continued, in 48 hours. So we will have a major joint naval exercise with allies in the Pacific. It's 20 ships, including 3 aircraft carriers and several submarines. If the navigation systems are compromised, ... double quotes, he didn't need to finish the sentence. The image was clear and terrifying. Advanced warships, each with thousands of crew members, sailing blind, or worse, with systems compromised by adversaries. We need your team to implement an emergency security review across all participating ships and bases. The Rear Admiral continued. Your integrated protocol is our best defense at this time. Understood, sir. When do we begin? Now. A helicopter is waiting to take you to San Diego. From there, you will be transported to the USS Redemption to coordinate the operation directly from the scene. My stomach dropped. I'd been on ships. Of course, I was a naval officer after all, but I'd never operated from an aircraft carrier on active duty, especially not during a potential crisis. Take your father with you, the Rear Admiral added, surprising me. His experience in naval operations will be invaluable, and the two of you have proven to be an effective team. After the meeting, I rushed to get ready. My father was at my apartment within minutes, carrying only a small backpack. "Looks like I'll finally get to see you working on a real ship," he commented as we headed toward the helipad. "This isn't how I imagined it would happen," I replied, checking my documents and credentials. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're ready for this, Lauren." More than ready. The flight to San Diego felt endless, despite the speed of the military jet. Throughout the journey, I received constant updates about new attempts to hack into systems. It was a coordinated attack on a scale we'd never seen before. When we landed at Naval Base San Diego, we were immediately transferred to a Seahawk helicopter that would take us to the USS Redemption. The sun was already setting, painting the Pacific Ocean with hues of orange and gold. "First time on an aircraft carrier?" the pilot asked over the "Yes," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's nothing like landing on one," he said, "especially at dusk." My father, sitting next to me, smiled. He's right. It's a unique experience. As we approached the massive ship, I felt a mixture of anticipation and awe. The USS Redemption was a marvel of modern naval engineering, over 1,000 feet long, capable of carrying over 70 aircraft and housing nearly 5,000 crew members. The landing on the deck of the aircraft carrier was as thrilling as the pilot had promised. As soon as the wheels touched the deck, we were greeted by a group of officers led by Captain James Reynolds, Redemption's commanding officer. Lieutenant Hayes, Captain Hayes. He greeted us formally. Welcome to the Redemption. I wish it were under better circumstances. Thank you, Captain, I replied. Could you update us on the current situation? As we walked through the carrier's maze of corridors, Captain Reynolds explained that they had detected 3 separate attempts to hack into the navigation systems in the last 6 hours. Our technicians have managed to block the intrusions, but they're concerned this is just the beginning, he explained, leading us to the ship's war room, where a team of officers and cybersecurity experts were already waiting for us. The peculiarity is that the attacks appear to be coming from within our own network. The captain can, as if someone had already established an entry point. I looked at my father, who frowned. An insider, he muttered. Or an already compromised system, I added. Captain, we need to review all system access logs for the past 6 months. And we need to implement the integrated security protocol immediately. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. We worked tirelessly to establish new security protocols, verify systems, and identify potential vulnerabilities. My father, with his experience in naval operations, offered valuable insights into how systems integrated in practice, while I applied my specialized knowledge of cybersecurity. It was almost midnight when I noticed something strange in one of the records. This access, I pointed to an entry in a terminal. It was authenticated using valid credentials, but the usage pattern is completely different from the user's history. One of the cybersecurity experts came over to take a look. Good eye, Lieutenant. This officer normally only logs in during the day, but we've had consistent late-night access here for the past 3 months. Who's the officer? My father asked. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Wilson, Communications Department. Captain Reynolds, who had just returned to the room, froze. Wilson? Impossible. He's been on the ship for 5 years, has an impeccable record. Where is he now? I asked. I should be on duty in the communications room, the captain replied, but he was already reaching for his communicator. Security, locate Lieutenant Commander Wilson immediately. Minutes later, we received the news we had feared. Wilson was not at his post and was not responding to calls. Sir, a young officer interrupted, rushing into the room. Lieutenant Commander Wilson was seen entering the main server room approximately 20 minutes ago. Captain Reynolds immediately ordered a full lockdown and sent a security team to the server room. My father and I insisted on accompanying. We raced through the narrow corridors of the aircraft carrier, adrenaline pumping through my veins. When we reached the server room, the door was locked from the inside. Open this door. Immediately, Captain's order, commanded the leader of the security team. There was no answer. At a nod from the security officer, one of the sailors began to force open the door. If he's sabotaging the main systems, double quotes, my father began. It could compromise the entire fleet, I added. The exercises begin in less than 36 hours. When they finally managed to open the door, we found Wilson hunched over a console, a strange device connected to the main system. Upon seeing us, he pulled out a gun. Stay back, he shouted. Don't come any closer. The security team pointed their guns at him. Wilson, put your gun down, the security officer ordered. Don't make things worse. Wilson looked nervous, his eyes darting from one face to the other. You don't understand. It's too late. The upload has already started. I glanced at the console behind him. A progress bar showed 78% complete. Wilson, I said calmly, stepping forward despite my father's silent protests. Whatever you're doing, there's still time to stop. No one's hurt yet. Stay where you are, he yelled, pointing the gun at me. I slowly raised my hands. I'm Lieutenant Hayes, a naval security specialist. I'm here to help. Why don't you tell me what's going on? His eyes narrowed. Hayes, the integrated security expert? Yes, it's me. He let out a bitter laugh. Ironic. Your system is exactly what we're compromising. My heart sank. Who is we, Wilson? People who recognize talent when they see it, he replied. People who pay much better than the United States Navy. 10 seconds passed in tense silence. The progress bar continued to type 3%, 84%. Wilson, I tried again. Whatever you're doing, think about the lives at stake. Thousands of sailors, your colleagues, the people who rely on you. Something in his features wavered. I know you must have your reasons, I continued, but that's not the way. Help us fix this, and I promise to do my best to help you too. There's no turning back now, he murmured, but I noticed his hand trembling. My father took a small step forward. Son, I've served for 30 years. I've seen men make mistakes and have a chance to redeem them. But once you cross that line, double quotes Wilson hesitate, his eyes flicking between us and the console behind him. 89% complete. What's the program, Wilson? I asked. What are we up against? He swallowed hard. A virus. Designed to infiltrate the integrated navigation system. During exercises, it will take partial control of the systems, sending false data about ship position, causing collisions, my father concluded, his voice grave. Wilson nodded slightly. The idea was to create chaos, not necessarily to kill people, but but ships colliding means lives lost, I added. You know that. The progress bar marked 90%. How do we stop this? I asked directly. Wilson looked at the gun in his hand, then at the console. For a terrifying moment, I thought he might shoot the equipment, making it impossible to reverse what had already been done. There's an interrupt sequence, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. But I need to be at the console to activate it. The security officer shook his head. Out of the question. Put your gun down first. If we don't stop the upload in the next I looked at the console to 95%. 2 minutes, it will be too late. There was a moment of tense standoff, all eyes shifting between Wilson and the progress bar that continued inexorably to advance. It was my father who broke the silence? Let him do it. Captain Hayes, protested the security officer. It's our only chance, my father insisted. If this virus spreads through the fleet The officer hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Lower the gun slowly, Wilson, and keep your hands where we can see them. Wilson complied, placing the pistol on the ground. Immediately, 2 sailors stepped forward, one kicking the gun away, the other keeping Wilson under surveillance as he turned to the console. His fingers flew over the keyboard as we all watched the progress bar reach 98%. Come on, I muttered. A new window opened on the screen, prompting him for a sequence of codes that Wilson quickly typed in. 99%. Almost there, he said, sweat pouring down his face. A message flashed on the screen. Break sequence started. Confirm? Wilson pressed enter. 100%. For an agonizing moment, nothing happened. The room fell silent, everyone holding their breath. Then the screen changed. Upload interrupted. Data corrupted. System in quarantine. I let out a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. Did it work? Asked the security officer. Wilson nodded wearily. Yes, the virus was neutralized before it was activated. The systems are secure. As the sailors handcuffed Wilson and escorted him out, he paused briefly beside me. Do you know why they chose your system to compromise? He asked quietly. Because it's the best. Because if they could take down the Hayes system, they could take down anything. I didn't know how to respond to that. There was a perverse compliment hidden in his words. My work was so good that it had become a prime target for the nation's enemies. Over the next few hours, we coordinated a thorough scan of all redemption systems and established protocols to check the systems of all other vessels participating in the exercises. Wilson provided crucial details about the operation, including the names of contacts and communication methods used by the spy network. When we finally had a moment to rest, my father and I found a quiet corner on the outer deck of the aircraft. Dawn was beginning to break on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. So they targeted your system, my father commented, breaking the silence. Yes, I replied, still processing this information. You know what that means, don't you? I looked at him, expecting another one of his lessons. It means you've reached the top, Lauren. When the best consider your work the biggest threat, it's because you've become the best. I smiled wearily. Thank you, Dad. But we still have a lot of work to do. He nodded, looking out at the ocean stretching endlessly around us. You know what's funny? Throughout my career, I've participated in combat operations, commanded ships in war zones, and weathered storms that seemed like they could swallow the world. But I never fully understood that the real battle of the modern era would be fought over servers and systems. Times have changed, I agree. Yes, they have changed. And you were at the forefront of that change. While I was still stuck in the past, the sun finally emerged over the horizon, bathing the deck of the aircraft carrier in golden light. Rear Admiral Morgan mentioned he's considering promoting you, my father commented casually. Lieutenant Commander Hayes. Sounds good. I blinked in surprise. He didn't tell me anything about it. My father shrugged, this small smile on his lips. I've probably been waiting for the right moment. After this operation, I think that moment has arrived. We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the sunrise. Finally, I asked something that had been on my mind since the night before. Dad, when Wilson pointed that gun at me, you didn't seem worried. He looked at me seriously. I was terrified, but I also knew that my daughter, the security expert I so underestimated, would know exactly how to handle the situation. Started that day at the airport, when my dad made fun of my paperwork, and then a real alarm went off, changing our lives forever. In the months that followed, the events on the USS Redemption led to one of the largest counterintelligence operations in recent U.S. Navy history. With the information provided by Wilson, we were able to dismantle much of the espionage network that had infiltrated several U.S. military installations. As my father had predicted, I was promoted to lieutenant commander, taking on an even more important role in restructuring naval security protocols. My integrated security system, now enhanced with the lessons learned from Redemption, became the standard not only for the Navy, but for all American armed forces. My father, who had initially planned a peaceful retirement, accepted a permanent position as a senior advisor in my department. We worked side by side almost every day, combining his traditional expertise with my innovative approach, a partnership that quickly became legendary in naval circles. On a particularly busy day, I received a call from Admiral Morgan, recently promoted from Rear Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Hayes. He began formally. I am calling to inform you that your presence is required at the White House next Monday. My heart almost stopped. The White House, sir? The president himself wants to know the mind behind the system that prevented what could have been one of the worst disasters in the history of the American Navy. When I hung up the phone, my father walked into my office, immediately noticing my stunned expression. Bad news? He asked, worried. I've been summoned to the White House to meet with the president. His face lit up with a wide smile. My daughter in the White House. Your mother would be so proud. The following Monday, my father insisted on accompanying me to the White House entrance, even though he had not been invited to the meeting. I just want to see you walk in, he said, adjusting my impeccable uniform as we waited at security. Old Captain Hayes' daughter walking into the White House to meet the commander-in-chief. I'm nervous, I admitted, something I rarely confess. He squeezed my shoulder. Remember who you are, Lauren, the officer who turned paperwork into a tool that saved thousands of lives. You belong here as much as anyone. With these words of encouragement, I entered the White House, where I was greeted by a presidential aide and led through historic corridors to the Oval Office. The president rose to greet me as I entered, extending his hand. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, it's a pleasure to finally meet the heroine of the USS Redemption. The honor is mine, Mr. President, I replied, trying to maintain my composure. The meeting lasted nearly an hour, during which we discussed not only the events on the aircraft carrier, but also the future of national security in an increasingly digital world. Lieutenant Commander, the president said at the end of the meeting, I have rarely met anyone with your combination of innovative vision and dedication to duty. This country is fortunate to have you serving in its armed forces. When I left the White House, I found my father waiting patiently at the appointed spot, his anxious face lighting up when he saw me. How was it? He asked immediately. Surreal, I replied honestly, but also ... inspiring. That night, as we ate dinner to celebrate, my father raised his glass in a toast to my daughter, the naval security officer who proved that paperwork can change the world. I smiled, remembering that day at the airport that had changed everything. And to my father, who finally learned the value of administrative work, he laughed, clinking his glass against mine. Touché. You know, Dad, I continued, more seriously, that day at the airport, when you mocked my work as just paperwork, part of me was devastated. I've spent years trying to prove myself to you. He looked down, a flash of shame crossing his face. And I spent years being too stubborn to see what was right in front of me. But in the end, I added, maybe we needed that moment. That comment about paperwork followed immediately by a real crisis that showed the true value of my work. The universe has an impeccable sense of timing, he agreed. I think the lesson I learned is that we can't always choose how others see our work, but we can choose how we do it with excellence and dedication, regardless of recognition. He nodded thoughtfully. And the lesson I learned is that sometimes the things we despise most are the very things that end up saving our lives. I raised my glass again. To the paperwork then. He laughed, a genuine, warm sound. To paperwork and to the extraordinary daughter who turned papers into shields and protocols into salvation. That night, reflecting on the incredible journey that had begun with a sarcastic comment at an airport, I realized that my story was just one chapter in a much larger narrative about how we serve our country. Some do it with guns on the battlefield, others with ships on the ocean, and some, like me, with procedures, protocols, and yes, paperwork. Every role has its value. Every service matters. And sometimes it takes a moment of crisis to reveal the truths that have been right in front of us all along. When my father dropped me off at my apartment that night, he hugged me tighter than usual. I'm proud of you, Lauren, he said, his voice cracking. Not just for what you've accomplished, but for who you are. For staying true to yourself when everyone, including me, doubted your path. Thank you, Dad, I replied, feeling tears in my eyes. It means more than you know. As I watched him leave, I thought of the girl who built alarm systems for dollhouses, the young cadet determined to specialize in security against all advice, the officer who faced skepticism and ridicule, even from her own father. This journey hadn't just been about proving my worth to others, but about staying true to my own vision, even when no one else understood it. And now, that vision had saved lives, strengthened the nation, and, unexpectedly, brought me closer to my father than ever before. The next day, when I walked into my office at the Pentagon, I found a small package on my desk. Inside was a gold clip and a handwritten note, to remember that sometimes the smallest piece of paperwork can be the most important. With eternal pride, Father, I smiled, placing the gold clip on my uniform, right next to my official medals, a shining reminder that true strength often comes not from guns or ships, but from ideas, systems, and yes, even paperwork. And it all started at that moment in the airport when my dad scoffed. Just paperwork during inspection. Then the gate violation alarm sounded, and I led the lockdown procedure, changing our lives forever.